I was meant to hang out with you, but I flaked real hard last year, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, you're trash, so what can you do about that? Fucking bitch.
What the fuck did you just say, Seth?
We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, who you love. If you want rule, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
All right, so today I have one of my favorite people, probably in the world, from New Zealand, here to talk about the elusive cryptocurrency and all that other good shit, stuff that I don't understand. But
stuff that hopefully makes us money.
There you go. This is Kyle Turnbull. Kyle Turnbull and I used to work together at, I'm probably not going to name the restaurant, but got really close there and started talking politics and just kind of, we just got really cool. Kyle went back to New Zealand and actually started working for a cryptocurrency company called Divi. Am I pronouncing that right? And
you are.
Kyle he gets paid the big bucks, but he gets the crypto bucks. And he's here today to talk to us all about that. Just everything about it, as far as we know, at least. And it's also one thing that, like, I'm super hyped for is that Anthony, I don't understand economics for shit. Like, I really don't. But Anthony does. So I'm glad to see, or to have both of you guys be in the same digital room together to talk about this kind of shit. So, yeah, first off, tell us about you, Kyle. I want to know everything about you that I don't know already.
Well, thanks for having me on. And I wanted to firstly talk about the first episode where you had Nandi on, who is someone who I hugely respect and who I met at the same time that I met you at that restaurant we won't name. But that was really the start of my journey, alongside other things, but that was really the start of my journey in social justice and really reflecting on those things. So it was awesome to hear you guys all talk last week, and just wanted to say that was a great episode and I enjoyed it a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For me, I don't know, I grew up in New Zealand where my town is largely white, mostly middle class, not very many, not super diverse, and so I wasn't really exposed to these sort of things until I moved to New York. So my partner's from New York, and that's how I met Sal. I came to New York. We lived there for a year, and that was really influential for me in shaping how I sort of interact with these discussions, and basically just showed me how much I did not know. So since then, it's been a journey. Finding cryptocurrency in 2017 was also massive for me, as I was able to sort of join or connect financial systems to injustices and the sort of current state of play in the world, and sort of being able to see how we can move forward in more equitable ways.
Right. Huh.
That's kind of gone.
No. I was just gonna say that's an interesting, like, it's interesting because I also remember you speaking early into the financial aspect of a lot of social justice and stuff like that. So it's I just think it's interesting that your kind of reaction to it was to look for the financial solution. It's just, to me, it's just interesting because it's all, we say things like everybody has a role to fill. So it's just nice to see and hear about that.
Yeah, I guess it's not that the other aspects of social justice aren't important at all. I think they're all equally important.
Yeah,
I'm not the voice in those things. They're not realms that I think that I have taken up in the past, but moving, on this journey, I've decided that that's not the place where I'm effective, and what I should be doing is supporting those people's voices who have done the research, do understand what's at stake, uplifting those voices and sticking to a realm where I can feel like I make tangible benefits through what I know. So
that's some sick self-realization. That's good. I'm really happy to hear that. I don't know if you answered this already, but like, what brought you? I know you met Kelsey in New York, or you met her in New York, right?
She came on exchange to New Zealand, and then we did long distance for a year a bit, and then I came over, and I actually lived with her at her college dorm. She went to SUNY Purchase, which was another big, had a big impact on my social justice journey, because that place is like the most progressive campus I've ever been on. And it was actually right around the time of the murder of Michael Brown. So we went to the Millions March. Her college hired a bus, got us down to New York City, and that was kind of the first taste that I had of I guess political activism, because it's not a massive thing in New Zealand. So that introduction was incredibly powerful. So yeah, meeting her, coming back to New York, that's where it all started, I guess.
That's cool. Like, I know you've mentioned that you've met a lot of you've met a lot of activists being around Kelsey and stuff like that. But also, before we even get into that, I kind of wanted to ask, like, coming into the working in the food industry as nuts as it is, what was it like for you as someone, from New Zealand to work in America? And our restaurant we weren't open for like, I think 6 months or something like that. And like, what was it like for you to, come to America, work at a restaurant, and then when we finally opened, which was fucking insane, and you're exposed to like, I swear to God, that restaurant had the worst clientele. So like, what was that like for you? Because that must have been a crazy peek inside the psyche of American people, especially their politics. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it. I wouldn't change that experience for anything. The people I met, I'm still friends with you. I still have friends from that. Its role in shaping me, like the amount of times I got called out at that work by people telling me I didn't know shit, was great. Like, that was super necessary. It was insane. Like, it was an insane place in an insane city, and I couldn't do it for more than a year, obviously, because that would be insane.
I couldn't either. I left. I don't even think I made a year there.
But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't change it for anything, because I am who I am now, largely because of a lot of the interactions I had there and the people that I met. In saying that, there are some massive problems in that industry, which probably is beyond the scope of what we're talking about today.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I was just curious because that place was that place was a nightmare for me. But I also have that same kind of experience where like a lot of my interactions there kind of helped shape who I am today, shape my ideologies, but also shape how I interact with other people. So tell us about this crypto. Like, we are completely new to cryptocurrency. So
right.
Yeah, and like I said, Anthony is very well versed in economics, but I am not. Like, everything to me is like, I'm like a baby. So tell us a little bit about...
I know jack shit about cryptocurrency, and like I went on Investopedia just to like try to keep up with this episode, but I don't think I can. So like, if you could really dumb it down, like dumb it down, like
as dumb as you possibly can.
Okay, so I will preface this because I know it's a really touchy subject for a lot of people. It's super polarizing, and to
don't worry about that. Don't worry. Who
like
cares?
polarizing.
Yeah,
acknowledge the fact that I'm not an economics major. I'm still on my journey on sort of learning about our current economic systems. I have a good overview, but there's still a ton I could learn there. But that is the point. So cryptocurrency at the moment has been pushed to the realm of purely tech savvy individuals or risky investors. That's where people see it lying. Like that's the people they think it serves. My job and the job of the sort of the volunteers and the people in my community that I've found over this last year has been to like create a totally different narrative around cryptocurrency. So I volunteer and help out on the advisory, sort of informal advisory board for the Divi Project, which is a cryptocurrency that was started in 2018 with the entire goal of making cryptocurrency easy. So crypto made easy is their slogan, because they realized that the technology was there. It was incredibly powerful. They saw how it could tangibly benefit communities all around the world, but no one was trying to make it accessible to anyone. It was just the realm of the people who had incredibly technical knowledge about blockchain, cryptography, and whatnot. So for the last year, I've been doing that. I've been trying to talk to people in ways that make sense. And if I like put the question back to you, and I messaged you this last week, Sal, I said, you don't know how the banks keep your money safe or how they send it, do you?
Yeah.
And so if we can talk about it in that way, whereby people have an understanding, but a very base level understanding, that's all you need to do. And that's what we're out here trying to do. And that's why I wanted to come and chat with you guys today.
That's funny because I remember. Oh, sorry.
Doesn't the FDIC insure the money for the banks?
Right. Yeah. They have an insurance policy, but I'm asking technically, do you know how they send money from institution to institution, how that's secured? Like, no one actually knows, really.
Oh, okay.
I mean, like the base level of security, because I barely know that about cryptocurrency. I have a very good understanding, theoretical understanding, but it's not why I'm interested in it. I'm interested in it because I can see how communities can get their hands on it and start making those changes that I think are intrinsically linked to financial freedom, basically.
I remember we were in the conversations that we've had about it, and you've actually tried to get me to use Divi, which I'm sorry because I'm such a financial I'm so financially inept that like I even with stocks I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, and I just don't touch it. But
I tried to send this guy free cryptocurrency and he wouldn't even get us sorted.
Don't out me like that. What the fuck? But every time I talk about crypto in my life, people are just like, that's people use that to buy shit from the black market. You want to buy organs on the black? I'm like, I might, but it might come in handy one day. Like, I don't know. But like, I remember bringing it up to you, and you're like, what do people think people do with regular money? Like, it's the same shit. People buy illegal shit all the time. And I was like, oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I mean, what currency is used for the most criminal activity around the world? The US dollar. And I'm not even taking into account what the government does with it. Like, to equate, because yes, people use Bitcoin to purchase drugs, to purchase, I'm sure, illicit material over the internet, but they also use the US dollar. And this isn't an argument about what people are using it for, because you're not stopping it with them doing it with the US dollar, because it still continues to happen. So I understand the concerns around that, because it is, you can't actually tell who's spending what, but it is an open ledger. So maybe I should talk a little bit about a sort of a basic understanding of how cryptocurrency works, and then we can go from there.
Yeah.
So
you have the floor.
People often mistake the idea of cryptocurrency as that you hold a digital asset, like you have the Bitcoins sitting on your computer somewhere. All cryptocurrency is a decentralized ledger. So just showing transactions. It just shows where things have moved to and from. You don't actually own a physical coin as such. What you own is the keys to a transaction history, essentially. Now that sounds kind of confusing, but what it means is everyone stores around the world. So cryptocurrencies have things called masternodes, or people who provide consensus on who owns what, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the masternodes are kind of like they're essentially like locks, aren't they? And the more you have, the more secure it is.
Yeah, so like if I was talking about us three, right? Basic, if we had our own blockchain, right? The Delusionals blockchain, let's say.
That sounds sick.
If we all had masternodes, we would have 3 complete copies of the blockchain sitting on each of our computers, let's say they're computers. We all then reach a consensus as to who owns what amount of what. So no one person is in charge of saying Sal has 24, Anthony has 50, and Kyle has none, right? No, I can't make the decision. We have to come to a consensus, and it's all based on algorithms. But essentially, blockchain is run as a decentralized ledger with multiple locations all around the world, people every second of the day coming to consensus based on who owns what. And that's kind of how it's secured, how it operates, and how, essentially how it works. It sounds super confusing. It is super confusing. But the most important thing for me, I think, is the distributed nature and the decentralized nature of it, because no one entity has control over things like the inflation rate, over essentially an inflation rate. But if you talk about that, that's incredibly important, because you can then plan for the future. You can understand where that currency is going. Like with the US dollar, you're always you're beholden to the interests of whatever political party is in at that time. So yeah.
I remember. Well, I feel like Anthony has something to say.
I have nothing to say, actually.
Oh, really? Because so I remember a while ago, and I don't know if you remember this, Kyle, but you probably do. There's one of the many conversations we've had. You brought up decentralizing currency and kind of from and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I remember is that a lot of the ideas that you discuss are taxation being immoral, in the sense that you can't really see what your taxes are going to, and you can't decide what you spend your tax dollars on, which is, I agree. Mm-hmm. I think it also is immoral. But then you also mentioned or having currency be a decentralized thing, so that people don't have to worry about inflation rates, like you said. They don't have to worry about banks. They don't have to worry about this and then the third. Mm-hmm. It kind of, and listening to you speak about things like anarchy and voluntarism, I think it's interesting that you gravitated to something like crypto, because it kind of does fit your ideology of the whole, like, okay, as far to my understanding, like, crypto is basically like, this is not like you said, it's not a physical object that you own. It's I think the term is mining, right? Like it's crypto mining or some shit.
I probably did a really bad job of explaining it, and it's really difficult to put it in to both do the technology justice, but also make it simple enough for everyone to understand.
Well, I think I kind of understand it. It's basically the coin is worth the crypto is worth this much money, X, whatever money it is, and you have like a master node or a channel of people who are in agreement that, okay, you have, like, I think if you explain how your job is set up and the way you're paid, if you can, I think if you explain that, it'll probably help, because I kind of understand it because I speak to you all the time.
yeah, that's fair. And I apologize if whatever I said.
Don't apologize.
Super confusing.
We were talking about sacking DC the other day. Don't worry, this is like nothing.
Okay, so with blockchains, they operate. So I use the word blockchain because that's the physical underlying principle of cryptocurrency, right? It's just one long chain of data. So there's something called a consensus mechanism, which is the way in which the blockchain and the people running that blockchain reach a consensus, i.e. figure out who owns what, how much of what. There are two consensus mechanisms. One is proof of work, which is how Bitcoin works, whereby computers solve incredibly complex mathematical equations using their hash power, which is graphical processing unit. So and the first one to solve that equation wins a little bit of Bitcoin. So there's an incentive for those people to keep that going. Now that uses a lot of power. Yeah, it's incredibly techy, and that's basically the level that I know it to. There's then proof of work, proof of stake rather, which is what the Divi Project and the Divi blockchain runs on, which is far less resource intensive and involves staking wallets and masternodes. And so basically you lock up a stake of Divi as collateral, kind of like a loan, and then you run some of those functions on your computer. Less taxing than proof of work, but follows a similar sort of style. So all you're doing there is constantly talking to the other wallets, saying, yep, all of this information is correct and it hasn't been changed. This makes cryptocurrency almost not technically impossible, but almost impossible to counterfeit, right? And we all know how easy it is to counterfeit the US dollar. Like, you walk into a bodega, give someone a $20 note that like is fake, and no one knows really.
And then they call the police, and then shit happens.
And then we have another issue. It's almost impossible to counterfeit, and pretty much all of the users on the network are coming to a consensus all the time as to who owns what. So it's incredibly liberating for people, because you're taking the power of all of that work that gets done by banks at the moment, and they take money because of it. So they're constantly clipping money off the top and taking those funds. Now doesn't need that centralized figure to do so, to keep it safe. What you have is...
Oh no, I'm sorry. I keep doing that. I was just gonna say, like, I think it kind of democratizes currency and income, which is kind of like that's what it seems to accomplish, at least. But like
100%.
And that's what the goal is. That's pretty interesting when you think about it, because if you try to do that, like, think of doing that with physical dollars, like having a meeting and being like, you own this much, you own this much, you own this much. Okay, great. Meeting's over, go home. Everybody's happy.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And if you think about it, like, that makes sense. But it's happening on your computer and you don't have to do a thing. Right. Because it's written into the code and it cannot be changed. Cannot be altered.
Interesting.
So, like,
have you heard of the modern monetary theory by Stephanie Kelton?
I have not. I would love to be enlightened.
So basically it's like, since 79% of the world converts their currency to our currency in order to like import and export things, the idea of deficits for our country is like obsolete. And if we do have deficits with certain countries, we could just iron them out in the trade deal instead of just giving them physical money. And
right.
just instead of... So all these things, like, we say that we can't afford because, say the United States military budget, that's overblown, and that's why we can't have Medicare for all. How about we just print enough money for both of these things, and it doesn't matter. Inflation would not matter since it's our sovereign money, and it really doesn't matter internationally, because, again, it's going to be ironed out in the trade deals.
Yeah, we settle our debts in different ways. I mean, it makes. I guess it probably makes monetary sense. It sounds to me. I mean, as someone who, and I know you touched on this a couple minutes ago, Sal. You mentioned voluntarism and anarchism. As someone who doesn't really, no longer recognizes the idea of like a nation state or countries, those things clearly won't work in a future that I kind of see as being the most equitable and just. But there's got to be, I don't expect anarchism or the decline of the nation state to happen in my lifetime. I hope so, but so we will have to find different ways to.
Yeah.
But this is the thing. So you touched on taxation, Sal, and you asked me a question a couple of weeks ago, I think, that where you said, why don't you talk about why taxation is mostly immoral, and as someone who's describes themselves as like a recovering leftist, which is kind of the term I use because I really don't see the left and right fitting to anyone anymore. I think they both have incredible flaws, in my opinion. But I think it's completely immoral, and I just wanted to touch on the idea of the overblown military budget. So, like, it's very easy for me to sit here and say it's immoral when I give you an example, like, because we're killing children in the Middle East all the time, and you have no recourse to be able to say, hey, government, stop using 24% or 25%, I think the budget, the military budget is, in terms of
it's
tax
51% of our... It's 51% of our discretionary income.
Right, there we go. So, yeah, when you realize that, right, and when I paint that picture for you, you say absolutely tax is immoral. But I don't think it should be an argument between that that implies that there's a moral argument I can make for the collection of taxes, right? That implies that there's a good way to do it. And I disagree with that too. but hear me out, because if you understand that if you accept that not having the ability to opt out of something like that needs to be your base level, in my opinion. Your base level needs to be, you need to be able to opt out, because the political inertia of government and being able to force change when they continue to take your money is insane. Like, there's just no... The amount of effort you have to go through when you continue to go to work to fund the thing that you're fighting against. If you told someone that, they'd be like, that is literally insane.
That's kind of like the gradual shift in ideology, right? So like that's like something we see now with the Lincoln Project, where neocons are pretty much taking over the Democratic Party, where we had someone like Sanders, who was considered the front runner for the nomination, platforming on these left policies, and now we have someone like Joe Biden being in the nominee, and now the future of the Democratic Party, unless progressives keep winning, it appears that the future of the Democratic Party is to keep going right. So I kind of agree with you too on that like your base should be, no, don't touch my money if I don't fuck with what you're doing. This is not negotiable.
Yeah. And this is the problem. Like, I have this argument with my family all the time, and they say, well, what about all the good things? And of course, I don't think I have the power to speak for everyone to say that taxation doesn't lead to some level of good. You know, we have social safety nets in place. We have some good uses, but we're at a point where that's just doesn't cut it anymore. Like, there are these massive mountains we have to climb, and if we can't say defund the police and then literally defund them, which we have the power to do, then everything else is too slow or not enough, in my opinion. Because if you're out there on the street saying, I want to defund the police, what you're doing is asking for permission, but from the government, to stop spending your money in a way that you don't see as fit, right? Why does that exist?
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we were at we didn't protest, but we did that food run, and they overwhelmingly voted to approve a budget that like nobody asked for. So it's just like, well, what good is using this voice if it doesn't give me what I want? I can't even be in the room when they're discussing about this shit.
The thing, I do agree with you, but I think that the remedy for that would be like a direct democracy type referendum. Like, if we are going to do these things, like if we are going to defund the police, we have an election in November saying how much are we going to defund the police. If we're going to, like on the ballot, it says how much are we going to defund it, if we're going to defund it at all, if we're going to increase the budget, and let democracy reign that way. I mean, that's my best guess how to remedy it. Yeah.
I guess direct democracies are the only thing that's close to democracy, I think, because it's literally the definition of the word. What we have is just token democracy, where you get a chance every 2 or 4 years to go and vote in a system that is heavily weighted against everyone that participates in it. Mm-hmm. I guess when I talk about it from a really theoretical perspective, where I go, even talking to you two and us three, do we think we have the right to vote to impose something on someone else? Do we think that's morally just?
The right to impose?
So
like the right
by voting...
Impose as in like you have to have an abortion type impose?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Oh no, we don't.
We don't, right? But then there are levels to that. You know? Do I have the right to turn up to the ballot box and decide that taxation is now going to be 50% because we have a large socialist government? That's also going to be very unattractive to people. And do I possess the right to govern other people like that without their consent? I don't.
You should read.
So
have you read Lenin?
I haven't touched any of Lenin's works.
Oh, word! You should read like State and Revolution. Everything that you're saying is literally like the first 11 pages of that shit. It's crazy. Like it basically like divide the divide the classes into economic tiers, raise tension between them, present the state as this reconciliatory being or entity, give universal suffrage to people and tell them, hey, you have a problem, vote it out. And then voting doesn't work, and then it distracts them from the reality that the real change is direct action. But
meanwhile, they spend trillions of dollars that off the backs of hardworking, and I'm talking specifically of the States, of hardworking Americans, and they tell you that the only way to affect that is to vote. I mean, it's just absurd. And then they
fucking nuts.
Reduce that right every single year. Every single year it gets harder and harder to vote.
Yeah.
Cool. Since you're from New Zealand, and wasn't there like a referendum immediately after the Christchurch shooting saying that like we're gonna
there wasn't a
remove all
referendum.
the assault weapons?
That was just straight through Parliament, just done.
That's crazy.
Oh wow.
We had a mass shooting every day in 2019, and Donald Trump was just like, eh. So
Yeah.
that's insane. Yeah. I actually wanted to ask you why, like, you probably know more about American politics and history than I do, which to me,
I don't think that's true, but thank you for the credit. I appreciate it.
but you know your shit. Like, you know a lot of stuff. And what is it about the U.S. and you might have said it to me before, but what is it about the U.S. that makes it so hard to ignore and also so important to stay abreast on?
I think it's uniquely situated in that it is the focal point for the world. I think everyone wants to live there. I think you have the most ethnically, culturally diverse cities on Earth, and that is bound to come with friction. I mean, it's just natural to have that friction when you have completely different or diametrically opposed cultures living alongside one another, and then to try blanket laws across all of them, that's an impossible task, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's just it's nuts. But I think it's also been the politics of the States has been. I read a really interesting article. I think it was, I forget who wrote it, but it was talking about 538. You know, the statistical.
If you're in
by
America,
Nate Silver,
and you don't know what 538 is, you did not. Man, you probably lost some good money.
But I talked about the gamification and the glorification of the political process, and how like the debate started having like half-time breaks, like it was the Super Bowl, and like creating this incredibly strange climate for politics, which is like they were turning politics into a reality show, and I think that reaches everyone in the world. It's dramatic. It's it's all these things that humans love to soak up in their spare time, and I think that's what's happened in the States and some other countries, which is why people are into it.
That's a good point.
I think it's all the money and the hyper capitalism. I think it's the respectability politics. I think it's the everything soaked in tradition, in which like, because when I see like when everyone else like argues for a bill on the floor, it's so much more interactive. Like I see Boris Johnson going against some I don't know the other parties, but it seems like, hey, I'm gonna shout at you. I'm actually passionate about it. In the United States, if you turn on C-SPAN, it's gonna freaking bore you to death. It's one guy speaking for like 3 minutes at best, and it's usually written down already by someone from the staff. So
yeah, and they walk around and collect votes, and then that's their day done, and they take their $500,000 a year and go home with it, or whatever they earn.
And I was watching this interview with a Trump campaign advisor, and he said that it's not like the national polling has Joe Biden up like 8 points right now, right? And conventional wisdom says, hey, he's up by 8 points. He's gonna win this thing, right? He says that the United States presidential election is a series of 50 different elections in one day. So it's not really like a national referendum on who wants to be president. It's just 50 states just picking a delegate who picks the president.
Yeah.
And like, does New Zealand, is it like a popular vote thing, straight up popular vote, you win it? Or is it like electoral college bullshit that we have?
I mean, I think it's stupid because I don't like government, but it's pretty good as far as like if you are going to implement a state, then like yeah, it makes a lot of sense. We use a system called mixed member proportional, I believe it stands for. So when you go down to the voting booth, you have a party vote, and you have a local candidate vote. So you vote for the political party that you want to represent you, and then you vote for your local candidate. Now that political party sorts out their leader by themselves. So like you're not voting based on, I mean you are voting based on leadership, but you're voting based on a political party's agenda as opposed to one person's agenda, which I think changes things a lot. But secondly, we have 7 or 8 different parties in Parliament. So like represented with seats. So I don't know the exact stats, but at the moment we have a government made up of 3 parties. So the Labour Party, the Green Party, and New Zealand First. They formed a coalition government because then they had enough votes to govern, essentially. So I can vote for a small party knowing that if they go with a bigger party, my voice is heard in Parliament. It's slightly more direct, but still half the population get a party they didn't vote for governing them, which is the inherent flaw I see in government, right?
I hear that. That makes sense. What is it like? My bad.
So which is the left party, which is the centrist party, and which is the right party, quote unquote?
We don't really. We have left. We have left of center, and right of center. We don't really have the political extremes. So we're currently governed by a left-leaning government, I would say. Just after spending 8 years being governed by a slightly right of center, and I mean like very slightly right of center government. But
wow,
pretty beige politics.
I don't even know what that means, dude. Like I don't
know.
Yeah, I wish.
Left what?
Dude, I
Left
wish.
of center.
I wish.
I mean, but I voted for the Green Party, which was cool because the Green Party got like 8% of the vote, which is really cool, I think.
The only left of center person in the United States is probably Bernie.
Yeah.
And he's way too far left for me.
Bernie's too left for you?
As I said, but that's what I mean. I don't prescribe to that because I think the idea of increasing the power of the state is a terrible idea. That's what I inherently believe.
I've heard that take before. I don't necessarily disagree with it.
Wait, Bernie's too left of you because you're an anarchist?
I'm not an anarchist. I don't identify as an anarchist. I identify as a voluntarist who's currently trying to figure out what the hell's going on in the world. That's where I'm at.
I think voluntarist.
I think I challenge you to disagree with what I'm just going to say. Everything you do should have your consent.
Yes.
And that's the basis of voluntarism, is every act should have no coercion involved and consent underlies all of the principles, essentially.
Damn.
So
you could do that in New Zealand. Because with your little left of center government, we can't do that here.
Yeah,
because
you gotta be.
That's the thing that's crazy.
Hard left.
Yeah, you can't. You gotta be hard left, or that's it. Because in this country, if you leave it up to everyone else, they'll just be like, "Yeah, nuke Iraq," or "Yeah, get Communist Manifesto out of the schools." Fuck J.K. Rowling.
Every day we have to inoculate ourselves out of capitalism. Every single day we have to resist. Like, it's all around us. Like,
people in our country defend things like privatized healthcare that make insulin $9,000. Like, people defend that. So I don't know if people in New Zealand do that.
So yesterday,
go on,
Kyle.
No, I think I had a point that I wanted to talk about this. We have this disdain for corporations, and rightly so. I would never argue.
When you say we, you mean we, New Zealand?
Us three and the United States.
Oh.
I'm talking about the States here.
Talk about
Progressive people, progressive left activists have a disdain for corporations. 100% justified. But the thing about corporations is they are only granted that power by one entity, and that's the state. So to not draw the line between those two is disingenuous, I believe. Because the only reason those companies are allowed to do that is because they negotiate contracts with states, local governments, whatever, with people pretending to represent the people, right? And corporations are interesting because they're quite paradoxical, I think, in nature, because they exist due to the presence of a state and the legislation that allows them to exist, but they also exist outside of it, right? And continue to challenge its power to lie beyond any form of regulatory control. So to talk about privatized healthcare, what you have is, and I've said this to you before, Sal, is government corporate welfareism, essentially, because you have a free market for some, but not for others.
Yeah.
So to hate on the idea of, and I don't know how a totally free market healthcare would work, but certainly the one that you guys have currently is abominable. It's horrendous.
It's fucking shit, dude.
But it's because of the people that you continue to vote to represent you.
You ain't lying.
So yesterday I went on my daily Joe Biden rant and why you're an asshole if you vote for him. So someone said, well, you have to vote for Joe Biden because Trump is a worse alternative. And I said, so you're going to just let the guy who worked with segregationists, who voted for the Iraq War as the chair of the Senate Foreign Affairs Committee, who voted to repeal Glass-Steagall, he's literally horrible. And they said yes. I'm like, so what did Trump do to equate something as bad as voting for a 17-plus year war? And they never answer me. And that's the thing that concerns me the most. Like, how far are we willing to let other things, like other entities that people publicly don't know about, or it's not obvious as Trump, to get rid of him? Because I feel like this is the type of like Faustian bargain that makes things worse instead of better.
100%. It's ridiculous because if you think about that person you talked to, I don't know who it was, but I guarantee
a Twitter guy,
that,
so
okay, who cares who he was? But I guarantee that you guys have so much common and anger at the system. But what we
no, we don't.
Okay,
No.
let's say Sal and I was like, I'm not voting for Biden because of what you just outlined. But Sal said, I'm voting for him because he's better than Trump. We both have similar goals, wants. We both believe in freedom of expression, self-determination, being able to marry who you want, we believe in all these things. But what we end up doing is fighting for some political figure in a system we didn't create that inherently does not serve us. And we spend all of our time, all of our money doing that instead of going, I don't want to be a part of this anymore. This is ridiculous. And that's kind of where I'm at.
I kind of feel like it's part of... I feel like before, back in the day, like video games were cool. You could like buy it and you get the whole thing. And now you spend like $60 and then they give you basically like a demo version. And you have to spend another $40 on like the DLC. I kind of feel like we can't ever get just the full video game now. We have to kind of just keep willingly getting fucked for, if we want to get the new coolest thing, we got to shell out the money and then we got to wait, deal with the patches, and then shell out more money for the new DLC. And it's annoying. That's kind of what voting is to me. It's just like I had to wait all this time to even be able to vote for somebody that supports healthcare for all. And there's a good chance that I won't even get it because fuck me.
I have a question about the voluntarism. Like, how would we administer like a broad base of like a broad program through voluntarism, like say like Social Security or healthcare.
How's Social Security going?
How's
I don't
social-
think it's like as
It's great. It hasn't been touched. I mean, there's been threats of.
It hasn't been cut.
There's been
It's still there.
right.
since 1933. It's still there, and there's been like, trust me, there's been like a lot of fights to cut it, and it's still there. That's honestly.
No, do you
Honestly,
understand
it's
how
the shining
depraved that
thing.
is? You understand how depraved that is? Like, how is Social Security? Oh, it's great. It hasn't been cut yet. People are trying to cut it for 70 years. What is
I'm
wrong
pretty
with
proud
also-
of that.
But also, I think I 100% believe in social safety nets. I believe there are people who need help in certain times of their life or for their entire life. I would flip the question back on you and ask you why you believe that the state is the best entity to be providing that.
Whew.
And it's not a trick question. I'm on my journey. You're on your journey. We're both trying to figure this shit out. But that's where I'm at. I'm at why, because I also believe those things. I'm like, how would we do it? I'm always questioning that. But then I think, why is the default the state? Why is that the default?
Yeah, I kind of got there too when the Bernie Sanders campaign was happening, and I typically don't I don't really initiate political conversations because they just barely ever end up being productive. But and I don't know what the climate is like talking politics in New Zealand, but in America for some reason it's very tumultuous. So I was at work one day talking to a coworker, and we were just talking politics. He happened to be in favor of Bloomberg, and I was like, well, what kind of policies do you like? And he basically listed off a bunch of Bernie's policies, and I was like, so why not just Bernie? And he was like, because I don't trust the state to do. He was like, I don't think that the state can do universal healthcare properly. He's like, do you think? He was like, do you like going to the DMV? Do you like going to any government institution? No. Like, imagine if that was your healthcare. And I was like, fuck, I never thought of that. And like,
Well, Medicare is very popular amongst the people who do actually have it. I'm not sure if we like widen the base to like 330 million people, if it's going to be like logistically as fluid as it is for like the small sector that enjoy it. But
I personally think it's a valid concern, but I also think that that's really all it is a concern, because I do think that if you're taking something like healthcare and putting it into the hands of the state, I don't think that that means that you're hiring government employees to now administer healthcare. I think you're just changing the funding. I mean, if other countries can do it and it works, can't we?
well, there's the French style and the European and the English style, where they have the NHS, where they use public funds to fund a public hospitals, and you have the French style where you use public funds to fund private hospitals. So it depends on whichever.
Kyle is
thing.
itching.
No, I just thought of a point, because there are a couple of things. There are great systems. New Zealand has a great system. People still fall through the cracks. On the public system, you have to wait 5, 6, 7 months for elective surgery. That's a long ass time. But if you are scared about a government
surgery.
But if you attach healthcare to politics, what happens when your entire healthcare system is then run by Donald Trump? It works while you've got a progressive candidate that you agree with in office, but what happens when it's then tied to the agenda of that political party?
That's what scares the shit out of me.
They say no more money for abortions. Sorry.
Well, they tried to do that. I don't think they succeeded. But they still tried.
The reason why like our social security hasn't been touched is that it's so popular, and it's such a political death knell that like if you even try to cut it in a red state or a blue state, you'll get fucking voted out. So, I mean, there's as long as you like attach it with political consequence, I'm not too sure that like, because no doubt if a Republican does come into office, they will dismantle it like they did the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. So, and how he's doing with the Obamacare right now, and that's not even anything close to like socialized healthcare. So I do understand that point, but then it's like it goes back to my point with like, is voluntarism going to administer it? Like, who is going to administer it? I'm down.
So, and this is gonna like, this is tough, and it's taking me a long time to get to it, but it's a private system. It's provided by providers. In New Zealand, I have private health insurance. I don't have it attached to my job, and I don't say this to make you guys feel like crap because healthcare in the States is awful. It costs me $14 a fortnight for private hospital cover and $7 a fortnight for private GP cover.
I bet.
That's an entirely private system. So I can't hear the arguments that a private system can't be cheaper.
Yeah, well, it took a whole pandemic for me to get free healthcare, bro. So fuck you.
You have healthcare?
I just got it. Well, I'm not getting it until August, actually.
My guy.
But that's
But you see what I mean? We have competing providers, and I can go to the doctor and get referred the next day. I can go to a specialist. It might cost me $30 or $40, but I'm going to be treated.
that.
For those of you that don't know, sorry, because this is more important than what you have to say real quick. For those of you that don't know, if you don't have healthcare, if you're struggling to find healthcare, what is it, NewYorkStateOfHealth.gov or .com? I think it's
.gov.
New York State, NYStateOfHealth.gov. Do that shit, and then, yeah, you select the coverage. Now you can continue.
I forgot the question.
Good.
Oh, yeah. Do you know, like, that can't work, that we have, like, 1/5 of our GDP is actually the health insurance companies, that it will never be like $14 for GP. I don't know what that means,
Because
or $7.
the politicians will not legislate to allow it to be so. They won't.
Yeah, and they get paid from said insurance companies through campaign donations. So I don't think that's not like, we would have to overhaul the whole like campaign, like the whole
government.
Yeah.
But that's what Kyle's getting at, though.
That's what I'm saying. You have no. I guarantee you, if you opened up healthcare in the state, it might not be perfect. I don't think any system is. But if you allowed companies to go at it to get consumers, you would. Like, I just went through this process with my partner. It's half the reason we left the States is because she couldn't secure healthcare. She wasn't allowed to access certain providers that could provide her cheap healthcare because the state of New York wouldn't allow it. Why in God's name does that exist?
Obamacare, yeah. I mean, they also don't know what the fuck they're doing in the States. They used Python. They used an outdated Python code to give people their unemployment. Many people I know actually never got their unemployment. Yeah, it's fucked here. Voluntarism, by definition, is the doctrine that the will is a fundamental or dominant factor in the individual or the universe. So I think what's important to state about voluntarism is that it's an understanding that you can't implement it in a system where the state is an entity. So it's more of an
post-anarchical society type?
Yeah, I would say it's more of a destination and not really like a political system to be achieved, you know? But
that's the thing. It would not argue for any political system. It would allow whatever political system serves the people. So this is a big thing people get wrong. They say, "Oh, you just want to run around in the street and spend Bitcoin on nefarious goods and shoot people." And I say,
you do though.
That's exactly what we're gonna do.
I was like, okay, I don't want to do that now. I don't know why I'd want to do that if there was no government. Secondly, it doesn't say governments can't exist. Because inherently I believe people would form governments. But do you know what those would be? They would be consensual and they would be representative.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as they weren't, you would have the right to say, I am out of here, lads. This is no longer working for me. And so then you can create systems, communities that actually inherently serve the people that contribute to them or exist within them.
I'm out of here, lads.
You know?
Yo, I fuck with it. That's so I kind of don't laugh, but I feel like I learned this watching Game of Thrones. Do you remember that scene? Remember that scene where Baelish is talking to Cersei about power? And I know everybody quotes the power is power shit, but there's a lot of good lines that they had about power in that show. And I don't know if it was Baelish or Lord Varys who basically was just like, power is what you believe it to be. It's not a tangible thing. And
it's the same with authority.
Right. And I mean, the one way that the state has power over us is through taxes and through police. It's not really like they can't really enforce their will upon you.
I would add a third, this perceived notion of moral authority. Like
yes.
we give it some standing above the actions of an individual. We've created something that's beyond the individual.
And it's so fascinating to me that some people think that, oh, if you don't have a government, you're just going to do whatever you want. And it's just like, well, why do you think that the government stops me? The government isn't what keeps me from doing illegal shit. The fear, I mean, I'm a normal brained person. Like, I don't have psychotic thoughts. I can't speak for everybody, but I don't act on violence because I don't want to hurt people. That's why I don't commit crimes. And just because the government isn't there, that's not going to stop me from either doing it or not doing it. That's their presence doesn't impact that.
And it's like, look at how incredibly misguided their views on what is illegal and what's not is. I mean, you only have to look at the war on drugs to look at the horrific implications of creating a moral imperative to do something, or this idea that they decided that drugs were going to be illegal, and you can't even cost the effect of that on certainly the states, but also all the countries surrounding them. Like, and everyone wants to do drugs, man. Like, what?
There's also deputizing citizens is also something that I find to be outrageous. Like, basically ICE announced that they're basically having volunteer ICE agents. It's like, you want to deport some immigrants? Here, we'll give you a gun. You don't have to work for us. And like, you could just deport people with us. It's cool. And deputizing citizens because they've tricked people into thinking that the government is the greater good, so to speak. It's kind of insane. It's insane how far along that stretches. And the drugs too. Like,
I feel like we need to let Anthony speak. He's been waiting for like a hot minute to say something.
Yeah, my bad, dude.
No, I just wanted to like jump in about the like arbitrary nature of why the Sackler family, that's the big opioid pusher in the United States, and they're worth like $6.5 billion. Why their drugs are cool, but El Chapo's drugs is not cool. Like,
legislation,
it's pretty
and authority,
and
that's
it's
exactly
like
why.
Because if El Chapo went to get a lobbyist in Washington, would his drugs be like approved by the FDA? Maybe.
Yeah. True. That's the other thing that blows my mind too. It's like state does some illegal shit. Chase got caught importing how many tons of cocaine and nobody said anything.
So this is where I kind of want to get back to cryptocurrency a little bit, because this is where I start to see the real benefits, right? I see a way to begin to completely obviate the current system. If I get paid in cryptocurrency, I buy goods with cryptocurrency, and then I can donate to whatever foundations that I believe in, causes that I believe in, invest in my community, invest in myself, invest in my family. I'm then creating directly the change that I want to see, right? I'm not waiting every 4 years to make a vote for some person who does not represent my interests at all, to then sit around on my hands and knees while they take 30 to 40% of my income and spend it on overseas wars. I just don't see there being an argument against that anyone who's not an authoritarian could make.
What is your...
Personally.
So you've been working on this cryptocurrency website for a pretty decent amount of time. So what? And we have spoken about how you want to expand it to make it something that's more feasible to, lower income earners or people that are in
absolutely.
poverty. How would you? What is the approach for that, and what's also the motivation behind that?
So I want to start by saying that those people with the least capital are the people that cryptocurrency stands to benefit the most. At the moment, you see, frat boys making millions of dollars off Bitcoin or whatever they're doing. That's not what it's about, and I really want people to try find a different narrative around it. So there's this report that we always go back to. It was done by the World Bank in 2017, and it basically concluded that 1.7 to 2 billion people on planet Earth are either unbanked or underbanked, which means they don't have access to traditional financial services like we do. What that means is they're either forced to seek out incredibly risky financial things like payday loans, loan sharks, whatever, and they're also less able to invest in their own communities because they can't secure capital. They can't have a safe place to store their money. They can't, save up to buy that house or start that business. Or it usually leads to a reduction in entrepreneurial endeavors, is what happens when you have a lack of financial security. So those people, if they're able to be their own bank, if they're able to take their own money and store it incredibly securely on their own person, they're then able to start accruing wealth and investing in things like education, in things like social ventures, community garden, whatever it is that people can come together. You start to see how taking money out of those systems and spreading it through communities in a way that can't be touched by those institutions that have never served them and will never serve them can make a real benefit.
Yeah. We talk about financial literacy a lot in America, but I don't really think that we don't really teach it in hand in hand with politics. It's not really discussed in a way to teach you how your money works in the political system. Financial literacy is just another way to tell people, like, I'm going to teach you how to make money. And it's very blanket things that you can't really use in real life if you're a low income earner, because you can't sit here and worry about passive income, stocks, bonds, all that bullshit. You like, maybe at some point down the road you can, but like, and so considering that, I think it seems like that's what the biggest goal of the crypto project for you is to teach people not so much how to make money, but how to take these, how to take money out of these oppressive systems and to give it to people so that they can make wiser decisions with it.
Absolutely. I'll give you one guess why monetary taxation isn't taught in schools, but we'll leave that because the government sets the curriculum, so why would they expose that?
Of course.
But yes, absolutely. Like, I'm not in cryptocurrency to make money. I invest in it because I believe in it. I hold a lot of Divi because I believe in it. I run masternodes because it secures the network, and I make a passive income. But that's not why I get out of bed. I don't get out of bed to make a passive income. I get out of bed to tell people about it and get excited about it and show people that, hey, there are alternative systems. And I see you on the street saying defund the police. I agree. Let's make it happen,
How could something
like
do you also participate in like trading securities and options and?
No, I don't touch it. I have so little regular currency in my life. It's beautiful. I don't.
Wow.
I have a retirement account that was set up when I was like through the government, which I'm trying to get out because I don't want them to touch it. But I have that in New Zealand. But yeah, other than that, I don't trade anything. I have Divi, and that's it, because I believe in it that much.
It's crazy how anti-government you are for being in New Zealand. And if you were here, I worry about what kind of person you would be. I feel like the US is so insane. You would be the crazy shotgun waving old guy in front of your house.
He'd be a libertarian, actually.
But this is a great point, because what has the news done to the states is pitted the left, who want freedom to access like life-saving medical treatment for cheaper. They believe in social justice and progressive social justice. They've pitted those people against libertarians who say we want to be able to do what we want on our own land. We think taxation without representation is theft. You guys are both saying the same things, but somehow you've come out as... And sure, there are a bunch of racists toting guns in America. I'm not saying that doesn't exist. But there's a massive movement on both sides arguing for pretty much the same thing. And all the news does is goes, look how different you guys are. God, you're different, aren't you? It's wild.
That's
because
funny.
I would never argue for the...
Speaking of, like, we've been talking about alliance building lately, and I mean, that's also part of it. Like, why wouldn't I want to be in a union with the libertarian, with the conservative, with the whatever the fuck? If we want the same things, we want the same things.
Well, some of their ideology is literally antithetical to ours, so we can't just group up with, like...
100%.
Some of them.
Yeah.
We could, like...
No, but there are factions out there.
Yeah. Like voluntarists. Never knew they existed. That's so rare.
I would encourage everyone to read about it and to like reflect on why they think like a large state is the answer to problems that are created because of an already too large state, and whether they believe that their right to vote to enact changes upon other people is inherently moral. And I think if people start there, they can start, and I'm not telling people they have to be anarchists or voluntarists, but I think you do reach a point where you realize that your beliefs are in some ways, what's the word I'm looking for? You figure out that your views, there are inconsistencies when you really delve deep down in it, because what you're asking for is freedom in certain areas and then to restrict other people in certain areas. And that's where I lose the left of politics, I think. As someone who was there for many years.
But what I'm a free speech absolutist civil libertarian.
I didn't catch that last bit.
No, you caught it.
It
just doesn't make any fucking sense.
I'm a free speech absolutist / civil libertarian. So I think that me and you as volunteers could definitely like collab on a lot of like policy.
Oh, so that's your political description.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that sounds great to me. I'd love to chat more. I think, but this is the thing. I think we've got politics wrong. I mean, obviously we've got it wrong, but I think we've got the goal of it wrong, because I think what politics has done, the body politic was designed to create safety and to reduce harms and other such things in life. And at some point we just created a system so large and inefficient that we actually took out, like, it's not a zero-sum game. Like, things, it's really hard to explain what I'm trying to say, but...
Take your time, baby.
Like, we have things like social safety nets because people, we and rightly so, we think people need help at some point in their life or they're going to slip through. If you argue that you need a government to do that, you then also have to answer for why people still continue to slip through.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like it just confuses me when people say, like, certainly, and I'm being hard on the left because I think there's a lot of room to grow there into much more like libertarian sort of movements. Mm-hmm. But the left goes, defund the police. We want less control of our streets by governments, but then simultaneously ask for greater presence of the state in other parts of their life. And I just don't see how those go hand in hand.
I think it's, like I said, I personally think it's a valid criticism. I think it's something that I've kind of been asking myself lately, not in the sense of, well, you know, why do you trust the state with this but not this? But for me, it's more of like, okay, we want to defund the police, and we want like a smaller police presence because we want things like healthcare, community investing, this and that, and a third. I don't think it's asking for a bigger state presence in this specific narrative. I think it's asking for a movement of funding, but at the same time, someone who who has been open to critiques of the left for the past few months. I don't think that you can necessarily preach. I don't think you reach these goals without some level of combining the philosophy of direct action either. And I also don't think that I don't think that the goal is entirely to have this big state presence. I think the goal is to have effectively less of a state presence. I mean,
in a way, it's kind of working right now, where it's like there's like heavy involvement in the government through police, and like they let you they then have this laissez-faire attitude when it comes to like liberal projects like healthcare. Like everyone says, Medicare, like Pete Buttigieg says, Medicare for those who want it. So like, I'm guessing it's like we could still have like this hypocritical stance on government as long as like we realize, like we know, like we have the self-awareness to say like, hey, we're going to balance it out here but not here. You get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
certain industries will be socialized, and certain industries won't be socialized. For example, like healthcare will be socialized, and say sneakers won't be socialized. So it's like, I guess I can't answer that question, and I guess you got me, and that does poke a big hole in our socialist or leftist ideology.
There's no getting, and I don't want to come off like that, because like I don't have the answer for you. I don't have it, but I know it doesn't look like that. You know what I mean? Like because that scares me, because as I said before, when you tie things like healthcare to political agendas, that's, to me, is personally incredibly dangerous, because then you get this thing where people only have healthcare for the term of whatever person's in there, and then it changes again, and then it changes again, and they're constantly left in some state where they don't know how much they're going to be covered for the next 4 years, over the next 8 years. It's just, to me, it's absurd. Also, there's this notion that by doing it through the government, like, it somehow costs less, or there is like, just, it's not free healthcare. It costs. Like, it has a cost. And to say that is, I think, disingenuous. Also, when you have less competition, and this is all free market thinking, right? When you have less competition in that healthcare system, there is no, and when you're taking free money, what's the incentive to deliver faster, more efficient care? Where does it come from?
Yeah, that's the critique that broke me, that I was like, oh shit, that's true.
Like, wait, the incentive of faster, more efficient healthcare?
Yeah, so where's the incentive for the government, who takes free money without having to ask and provides a service? Where is the incentive for them to go, people are unhappy, other than staying in politics?
I mean, currently the health insurance companies, they take about 20 to 30% just off administrative fees, and then they break it up to individual doctors and the medicine or equipment that's used. So making it more efficient, like having all the costs of the tax money that's being collected go to just care instead of going to administrative fees. I think that's more efficient than anything. Because ultimately the companies are trying to turn a profit. They're not trying to heal you.
No, that's true. But if that's the product they're selling, you stop buying it if it doesn't work, right? Like, why do we think governments are inherently more accountable than people running companies?
I don't think it's that though, because I don't. So this is where I understand the critique, and I think it is a very good one, but I don't think that just because it's government funded that it's shit. I also don't think that like we can continue to defend privatized healthcare because it's sure maybe we are getting the best care, but it is absolutely bonkers that regular treatments cost so much money and it's so hard to get regular ass treatment. And
But again,
I don't think having a Medicare for all kind of situation necessarily ruins shit. I just think you're changing where the money comes from. That's really it. You still have those people that went to school to be doctors, that want to help people, and this and that. You're not really changing anything but their source of income, which, as far as I understand, though, isn't that what it is?
And now there's no incentive for them to change because literally all of them are doing the same like practice in doing like the 80% towards healthcare and the 20% towards administrative fees. So if they all do it, we're stuck in this like shithole system that we're currently in.
But I guess my only qualm with that is that you guys still don't have a private healthcare system. You have an incredibly tampered with selection of rich companies providing healthcare, which of course is never going to work.
We have a monopolistic healthcare system.
Exactly. So to equate the issues with the current one with a free market system, I think is not right. I think you would see again. I told you I can get my healthcare bills. And I operate in a complete free market. Now it might be different through countries, but I know that the margin of what I'm paying compared to someone with a completely private healthcare provider in the States pays a lot more. It's just due to the nature of how it's been set up, and unfortunately, the cold hard reality of it is it comes down to it's a legislative issue, and it's been designed to be that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow, this is like I've never been challenged so hard about my my ideology and what I espouse every day. Like,
can I say something that isn't fair to argue from my point of position, because all political ideologies depart from moral truths. They all depart from it in some way or another, and voluntarism is about staying as close as you can to that. So, because I would say we're all three moral individuals, what you're being forced to do is argue for either like a reduction. Hey?
So not so much so.
But you know what I mean? You're being forced to argue for a system that actually was presented as very moral, but when you break it down, has a lot of inconsistencies and truths that need to be talked about.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I never really heard a valid criticism of Medicare for all until I heard the whole state-funded issue. Somebody asked me if I would trust the government to do it properly, or not to do it properly, but to have like, would you want to go to a government official or a government trained doctor, whatever the fuck, for like a procedure? And I was like, And the other point, the biggest point though, wasn't so much that. It wasn't that the doctors wouldn't be capable. It was that the system itself would just be shit, and it would just be bad. And it's like, shit. I mean, that's also a possibility. It's a possibility. I think the goal is to take the money out of these private companies that just price gouge shit so much, and to just really change the source of income for these doctors and medical professionals so that they don't have to rely on these evil companies. But shit, it is a valid criticism. Like, damn, it could also be terrible. But
I also think that like I think when we argue for Medicare for all, we think that there's going to be this giant reckoning in politics where there's going to be like the campaign finance will be destroyed, everyone evil quote unquote will be elected out, and then trust in the government's going to come back, and then we're going to have Medicare for all, and then we're going to have like this, we're going to dance in the streets.
It'll be the third Renaissance or some shit.
Yes.
I don't think that we can. There's so much evil that we have to undo in America before we do any good. That's what scares me.
and it all starts with stopping giving them money, like right now. Like, just stop giving them money. Like, imagine if communities that were like saying we're being taxed for policing and all they do is harass us and do not protect us. Imagine if they could take that money back, train their citizens in like de-escalation of violence, set up like community centers. Like, what are we doing? Why is this money pouring out of communities at an insane rate to then, with the perceived benefit that they get through some centralized service, when they come back and tell us that they hate it and it's not working for us to say go and vote? Like, it makes my skin crawl. It's the hill I'll die on, I think. I just don't believe in it, and I believe that communities have the right to self-determination, and that's kind of where I sit.
Well, we'll die before you. And that's the truth.
We certainly will die before you.
Guys. Stay positive.
What do you mean? What do you mean? Come on. We had the highest like corona hotspot in the world, and we're lucky that we're alive, and we have known like we didn't have health insurance either. Like if that, like even people with health insurance, I saw a guy like from Seattle. He was still billed $1.2 million.
Oh yeah,
for 40 days. Yeah, for staying 40 days because he had corona. 1.2 million.
Government took care of it, but still.
No. After his deductible, what?
All I'm hearing is more failure of the state.
Yeah. I mean, shit. It's true.
But that's what I mean. Like, and I'm involved in projects right now where we talk to and that's the states where there are countries that are worse off in terms of state governments and financial issues than the states.
And then they have to worry about us coming in there and sanctioning them.
Yeah, I mean, sanctions, how immoral. But we have lots of communities we work with. Some, two of the big ones, we work with a bunch of people in Venezuela. And if you know anything about Venezuelan monetary policy,
yeah,
that's actually why I brought up the sanctions. That's literally the country I was thinking of.
Right, Venezuela. So I think 2019, the inflation rate was 9,500%. And people, it's a massive number, and people go, what the hell does that mean? It essentially means, your money, that's hyperinflation. It started the Second World War, essentially. But we go and talk to communities there who say, we don't want to use our currency because our government continues to destroy its purchasing power by printing insane amounts and giving it to the banks. So we want a currency that we can trust. We want a currency that we can transact readily. And so we help them get their stores set up. We help them accept cryptocurrency. We set them up with masternodes that pay out passive income so they can reinvest in their communities. And that's kind of the image I want to set for cryptocurrency, because there are people out there doing that and using this incredible technology for good. And the more we see of that, even if this is just a way of holding governments to account where they go, you know what, yeah, we've done you dirty for a few years, we'll reduce our power or whatever, which they're not going to do. But even if we can get that sort of movement through defunding the government, which is, I guess, the new, what I would push to be the new hashtag of the day. I don't know. I see so much good happening. Those people are able to sell their goods to a global market, get a currency that is worth something, that they can transact with people instantly and securely. They don't have to go to the bank and trust these institutions who say, oh, sorry, all your money's gone. Yeah, that's the good I see in it. And I think it's central to all the conversations I have around governance and monetary policy, I guess.
So this is a very basic question, but what do you need for a cryptocurrency wallet, or what do you need for that to make these transactions?
Do you have a laptop?
What about people that don't have laptops or
Cool.
access to technology?
Big issue. So to run a masternode with Divi, that is usually a process for Bitcoin which takes a lot of skill. You need to know how to program, and also a lot of physical resource and a lot of time to keep it to maintain it. The Divi Project developed the first one-click install for masternodes that are hosted in the cloud. So it's a distributed computers all around the world, hosted on virtual private servers in the cloud, managed by themselves. I guess they self-manage. So you basically pay a $10 subscription fee to run that, and lock up your capital in it. I commit 100,000 Divi to this masternode because there are different tiers. That's all you need. So you do need access to a computer to run masternodes at the moment. With the next release, you will not. But the company I work for noticed that and said, we have massive communities in Africa and Venezuela where access to tech isn't always great. So we developed, through a WhatsApp software development kit we got access to, we developed mobile wallets attached to phone numbers. So you can send and receive with only a phone number.
Wow, that's pretty cool. I never heard of that.
So we're rolling. Yep, so that's what I'm working on the website and all the help documentation for that at the moment as a part of my job, working for a tech company that builds these solutions. But we see that, we offer it for free. So we're not asking anyone to pay us for it.
Damn.
But people use it and they're able to transact. Go down to the market. They can just text. Like I would basically text 100 Sal or your number and then hit send and it would send you 100 Divi.
And then
whatever.
You could use that to exchange for currency.
Yep, you could sell it on an exchange, or the idea with cryptocurrency is mass adoption, so that it is just the currency, so that you can use it for anything. Obviously, right now we have a problem because you can't buy everything with it. But
cool. I have two questions. Since I know that Venezuela has like massive oil fields, and like, do they? And partly the reason why they do have hyperinflation is that the United States and the IMF targeted their oil fields and tried to reduce their price. So do you guys trade like oil currency for cryptocurrency, or is there like anything?
Not that I know of. Our big role is purely a helping communities out. That's all we want to do. All we want to do is see communities like this is not like the goal of the organization. This is just me and other people who are volunteering, who have been a part of it for years, building websites, helping people out, getting them online. So I don't really know about what the local conditions are and what they're going through. All I know is that they have horrific sanctions and a corrupt as hell government that continues to print money for the elite that exists there at the detriment of their own people.
So you're not a fan of Maduro?
Oh, I don't. I would think, based on my conversation around states in general, that a dictator would probably sit fairly high up in my most hated list.
Got it.
But that's why I also think sanctions are one of the worst things that you can do to a country, because you're punishing a government, but all that does is punish people. Like that doesn't. Sanctions don't. They're a political stunt that have real world implications on the human beings that live in those countries, and that's an entire other podcast on sanctions.
Yeah, they're meant to cause uprisings from the suffering people,
so that people can
If they're suffering that much, how are they gonna like organize to uprise? That doesn't like make any sense.
Well, it's worked well in North Korea, hasn't it? That was sarcasm. I don't know if it went through Zoom very well.
Well, I have to do more reading, so that's probably why it didn't land with me. But
no, we kept on sanctioning North Korea, and obviously Kim Jong-un's not gonna like let anyone organize. So it's like, what's the point of even sanctioning him?
Yeah, true. That's very valid.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what we do. We starve people to death. Like, I remember reading about one of the sanctions in Venezuela, and it was like refusing even just medical supplies to people that needed it. And I couldn't fathom that helped punish any kind of leader. I don't understand what that did. I don't know. That shit was crazy. That whole Venezuela story was crazy.
The worst part of that is you funded that. Your tax funded that decision.
Have you, Kyle? Have you seen the infamous 60 Minutes interview with Madeleine Albright, former Secretary of State under
I have
Bill
not.
Clinton? So she says, so I forgot the 60 Minutes anchor. She said, so 500,000 Iraqi children are either dying or like dying of hunger or medicine. Do you think it's worth it that the United States are like implementing these sanctions on Iraq? And with a straight face, she said yes. And it's like, why are you doing these like targeted measures against kids who have no say in like politics at all, and their parents are so oppressed that
They can't do anything about it.
yeah. So like, if you're gonna go to, well, evidently we did go to war with Saddam, and that's how we removed him. So like, why didn't you just do that?
For democracy.
But it's like but the same pretenses that we went to Iraq in 2003, we could have done in 1998. So I don't know why you waited 5 years. I don't know.
Build up the courage, I guess.
What? I mean, does Bill Clinton have the like a far more like moral superior like foreign policy than George Bush? Because based on like what he did in Chechnya, I don't think so.
I mean, you seem to have a better grasp on US like foreign policy. I wouldn't speak to knowing a lot about it. But again, I know all of the voluntarists and anarchists that I am in circles with. Most of them have left the States. Like, that's how seriously they took it, to stop paying tax, to stop funding the war machine. Like, it's no joke. Like, it's not a throwaway it's not a throwaway ideology. Like, they've moved away to stop using their money to fund wars.
So we're the bitch socialists?
Hey?
I said we're the bitch socialists?
I mean, essentially, no, but that's how seriously
Essentially,
they take it.
yes.
But also, I don't see many people fighting for the lives of those kids that, you know, do suffer from these policies, and then we continue to defend the state. And I don't know. I think.
Well, I think it's almost like untying the Gordian knot, isn't it? I mean, it's such a gargantuan task ahead of us. Like, and this is, you got to think about the miseducation in this country alone. You know, the steps that you'd have to take to get people just into action. I've been preaching this shit for how many years? I think since Trump got elected. And I think people only started. It's weird. I talk about politics all the time. And when when the protests started happening, people started messaging me then like, oh, I didn't know that you. And I'm like, dude, every day I talk about politics. What do you mean? Like now it's not now that I decided to take the time and do it. Now you're paying attention. And like, that's kind of what sucks about this country, is that it takes moments like that for people to want to learn. Not that they don't pay attention, but they seek new information in these really terrible times.
People will get involved, and I think we're all guilty, privileged people like myself, we're all guilty of obviously the ability to check in and out. Like, that's a thing that we possess, you know, the ability to like check into a racial justice movement.
I can't check out.
The ability to check into environmental justice whenever we feel like it. Yeah, like this ability to check in and check out is like a massive problem. I kind of decided the most impact I can have, because like I'll share like a Black Lives Matter post on my Facebook. It gets like one like, you know, I'm like, man, you guys fucking suck. But the best action I can feel like I can have is like directly just try help these communities with my time, and just slowly but surely obviate the systems that exist. Slowly but surely just whittle away their power. It will happen if enough people get on board, and that's why I'm like 100% on board with cryptocurrency, because I believe it presents the most tangible way of completely disrupting governments around the world. And that's why it's called a disruptive technology. Like, it's completely against everything we've ever done, and it's scary, but I'm also super excited for the benefits of it.
That's awesome. That's awesome to hear too. Did you? What's
And I want to get you guys involved.
you should.
I'll send you. We'll get you set up with being able to accept cryptocurrency on your site.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds awesome. Actually, I would. Yeah. I mean,
Oh, no.
shit. If we could use that for
Anthony's raising his eyebrows.
Anthony does that a lot.
Crypto. Well, kind of stoned. But crypto. So we're accepting cryptocurrency
Only if you want,
as
man.
part of.
He's a voluntarist. You can't do it unless you want to do it. He can't make you accept cryptocurrency. That's what he's been telling you for the past 2 hours.
If you want to be like a statist cuck, then you can if you want. Like, that's fine. That's up to you. But don't make me be one. You know?
I mean, that's been my dream since a boy. But
Oh man.
so what can I purchase? Like, I can't go to Macy's.com and be like, yo, crypto.
Overstock.com, they accept Bitcoin. No, and this is the problem, is that there aren't enough use cases right now. But that only happens if people get on board. Like, we can only develop use cases when people are using it. We're always developing solutions. We're developing plugins for things like WordPress so that people can accept cryptocurrency on their site super easy. The new Divi wallet that's coming out, which I'm super excited for, will have an associated Visa MasterCard. So Visa and MasterCard card. So what I'll be able to do is spend my cryptocurrency and it'll automatically swap it to the fiat currency that it needs to be, and I will pay with that.
You said fiat currency?
I did. Yeah.
Yo, we were just talking fiat currency the other day.
We were just talking about, friend. Yeah.
That's
So-
crazy.
How cool is that? Do you know what then I can do? I can get paid in cryptocurrency. I can pay all my stuff with cryptocurrency. I'm officially no longer supporting systems I don't want to support. I can donate to the Red Cross if I want. I can start a local community garden if I want, but there's no theft going on there.
Am I putting you on the spot if I ask you if you pay taxes?
I do currently. That's not on the spot. You can.
Okay.
I pay taxes currently. I'm getting the courage I'm building up the courage to file my tax return. So there's a movement in the States. I want to find the link for you guys because I think it's...
Yo, what?
Wait, did you say that you're getting the courage to file your tax return?
No. I'm getting the courage to file my taxes.
I know people that need to summon up
And
courage to file their tax returns, honestly.
No, because there's a movement called tax resistance, right? It's the resistance, and it's usually been due to conflict. It's usually been foreign interventionist sort of issues in the States where you file your taxes and you write like $1 and then you say, I morally refuse to pay taxes because of these reasons. But I'm bringing out the courage to like file my taxes, so it's not like I'm avoiding it. It's not like I'm trying to evade taxes, but I'm saying I acknowledge that these taxes are due. Here's where I donated to, and I don't believe in the other XYZ or whatever. So that's kind of where like I'm trying to get myself to, because I morally believe that to be super important.
That is also awesome. Yeah, you should definitely. Damn, you should definitely. Sorry, I'm like mind blown. Yeah, send that to us. Also, we definitely need to chat about that.
I'd love. There are a few resources it's called the National War Tax Resistance Coordinating Committee, and so they work with people to like, refuse taxes on moral grounds.
Can you repeat that for me? I'm sorry. National.
It's called the National War Tax Resistance Coordinating Committee.
Okay.
Their little logo says, "If you work for peace, stop paying for war." Can't argue with that. But I don't know anything about the leadership. I don't know anything about them. I'm not recommending them as an organization. I don't know anyone in there.
You just know they exist, and
I know they exist, and I know there's a movement, and there has been since I think the Vietnam War. I believe that's when it started. To stop paying taxes, or pay your proportionate taxes that go to the things you believe in, and then say, well, actually, 51% of my tax goes to killing kids in the Middle East, so I don't want to pay for that. That's a cool thing. So to answer your question, I pay taxes currently. I'm building up the courage to essentially be a conscientious objector to them.
Okay. Damn.
But that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go to jail.
Kind of defeats the purpose if you go to jail. I mean,
But we got to abolish that too. So
yeah. Well, I mean, you can't fight against the system if you're in it, right?
yeah, that's true. You can't. You got to get out of it. That's the whole point. Stop offering me token votes. It means nothing.
Dude, I don't even know what I'm gonna vote for. Well, it doesn't matter. I'm in New York. I'm just gonna vote green because it doesn't.
We're gonna vote for the Green Party. We're gonna vote for the Green Party candidate Howie Hawkins. 2020.
I'm voting for Kanye.
What are your thoughts on voting no confidence?
I don't even know what the fuck that means.
Meaning that I don't like anyone, so I'm just not gonna vote.
Your vote is counted as a lack of confidence in the current system, I guess. I don't know. I don't know if it has any more effect than just not showing up.
That's an actual wasted vote. That's funny as hell. I didn't know that existed.
I mean, it's a wasted vote for an anarchist because they would believe that voting is irrelevant. But for someone who wants to see actual change but keep some of the current system, I think it probably sends a better message than not turning up.
Okay, yeah, true.
Because it shows that I want to participate.
But you don't give me the motivation
sucks.
to participate.
Yeah, but this is terrible.
Got it.
So, I don't know.
I don't think we have an option.
No,
though.
we don't. That's never heard.
What do you mean, a lack of rights?
What time?
Shocking.
No, on the ballot box it doesn't say Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden, lack of confidence.
No, but you could. Is there not an option? I mean, you can probably just write on it, but then the machine will probably jam, and then thousands of people behind you won't be able to vote.
And lack of confidence would be looked upon as an actual person,
yeah.
instead of getting the message no.
Last time I went to vote, I had to explain to the guy where my names were on I have a first, middle, and last name. I had to explain to him on my ID which one was. It took 6 minutes, and I was like, there's 2 people in this voting station. Why is this taking 6 minutes for me to vote? And I can only imagine what kind of fucking nightmares other people deal with.
Yeah, by design as well, eh?
Yeah, for sure.
Final 2 questions for me, at least. One, what time is it in New Zealand right now?
It's 4:00 in the afternoon. I'm about to crack open a beer.
They call them froth tops. They don't call them beer. They call them froth tops.
So that's 16 hours ahead of us.
And government still sucks 16 hours ahead. I can guarantee you that. Second question.
Do you have access to the dark web?
I don't know how to. I mean,
Okay.
I've never been on it. I don't know how I would. I know people who could get me there, I'm sure, but I don't know anything about it. That's not where the light is, man. Community. That's what it's all about.
That's why it's called the dark web. There's no light there.
Oh, this guy. Already a dad.
I'm talking to my 2 children right now.
As I said, that's not why I'm there. That's not why our community's there. I would encourage people to check out the Divi Project if they could. We're on Telegram. You can find us on Twitter. Just come say hi. It's one of the best communities I've been a part of. Everyone in there every day looking for ways to help people out. It's pretty cool. It's pretty beautiful. And that's my little shameless plug for the Divi Project.
No shameless at all. All right, y'all. Kyle Turnbull, New Zealand native, New York critique, cryptocurrency voluntarist, cryptocurrency advocate and activist. Also a good friend of mine.
Future tax dodger.
Kyle, I encourage you to join me.
Hey, no promises. I'm living off that government heat right now. I gotta do everything by the book right now.
That's sweet.
I know.
Oh, it's sweet.
I know we're in the outro,
It's
and we
sweet,
can
Kyle.
keep the music rolling, but it's not. You shouldn't feel bad for being on that because you've paid taxes for.
Oh yeah, no, I don't fucking care. You think I feel bad? I'm gonna milk this shit until I can't anymore.
Take as much as you can, then run.
Yeah, of course. That's a bit. Yeah,
It's the most
it's a paid vacation.
the most succulent thing I've ever seen.
Kyle, it's great talking to you as always. Thank you so much for the
Yeah.
insight. Thanks for challenging us, and thanks for coming on here.
And the Divi Project is one word, correct?
Yep, Divi Project. You'll find them if you search for them. And we're on Telegram, so if you find us, come to Telegram, just be like, what the hell's this crypto thing all about? And someone will be like, do your reading and then come back and we'll answer your questions. But yeah, we're always looking for people to come and join. We see it as truly a disruptive technology that can help achieve a lot of the goals that I see a lot of social justice advocates fighting for, and fighting for in a way that I see them not winning because they can't take the money away. So that's where we're at.
There you go, professional disruptor. And you can we'll put a link in the description for the Divi Project, but that's Divi Project. And yeah.
.org.
.org. There you go. Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks, Sal. Thanks, Anthony. Appreciate it.
Thank
Much
you.
love.